All right, we'll continue to add more content to our detail here. The next thing that we're going to add is some structure to support this soffit. So I'm in your textbook here, and there's a few Eave details on this page. And they have a little variation, sometimes material differences, things like that. We have like a 2-foot overhang at the eave, and there's different ways of detailing this. We need something to attach this soffit to, basically. So part of it can attach to the bottom of a joist. But if it's too long, you probably want to have some framing members. They don't have to be very substantial, something to just attach to. And it also depends on, what the soffit is made out of. Sometimes it's just a piece of aluminum that kind of has a profile to it that keeps it from bending. But again, it really kind of depends on the soffit type that you're using. So we'll use a 2x member here and generate this kind of framing that can be used to nail the surface of our soffit to. I'm going to go to Insert again and Load Autodesk Family. And I'll use the same dimension lumber. Let's see here, where was that? Nominal cut lumber section. Load that in there. Oops, click on it, load. And like I said, it doesn't have to be a substantial member, but we'll make it out of a 2x3, which is 2.5 inches by 1.5 inches, and click on OK. And keep in mind that these detail items that we're bringing in are really only for 2-dimensional detail work like what we're doing right now. So I'm going to go to Annotate, to Component, and they'll always come in under Components. Nominal cut lumber section, there's the 2x3. Now it's maybe a little bigger than needed. Let's move it into position though. We want it to be attached to the sheathing, which is located right here behind the paneling. And then to sort of finish this off, I'm going to use detail lines. This one, instead of a medium line, I'm going to make it out of a thin line because it's really we're really looking at it in elevation. We're not cutting through it. And let's see if I have a detail line that I can use. Let's see what my hidden line looks like. Yeah, that should be okay. All right, now there is a soffit vent that's a detail item in Revit, but I'm going to just draw my own because it's just as easy to do this. So go to Annotate, Detail Line, and let's try this out of medium lines. I'm going to make a line right here, and then I'm going to move it over, make a window and move it over 2 inches. And I don't know, I think it's too heavy. I'll move it down just a little bit. There we go. And I'll make a copy. I'll just make a series of these. Again, you can get as detailed as you want. It really kind of depends on the scope of the job. So I'm just making copies of this to sort of show a symbol that suggests that there's some kind of vent there. If these are made out of aluminum, sometimes there's perforations in the aluminum, and basically the entire panel just becomes this, this sort of vented surface. So now we're ready to start adding some notes. I'm going to go ahead and add the first one, and then I'll make some adjustments. So when I go to the annotate ribbon and I click on text, this first note that I'm going to add, and remember, we're going to be doing all capitals, asphalt shingles. All right, there's the first one. Now I'm going to click on it, and there are already a couple of text heights that are included in the project. 1/4 inch is pretty big. You can see relative to these levels, the text that's in the levels. So I'm going to drop it down to 3/32 of an inch. Okay, that's a little bit better. I'll be able to get a lot more detailed notes in there. Now, how far should we leave for, how much space should we leave? As I was mentioning, we probably are going to be able to move these over a little bit, but I don't want it to be too crowded. Okay, so there's my first one, and I'm going to click on that. And when you go up, when you do that, you'll get some options to add leaders. So if I click on this one, it's going to place, or at least provide a leader for me to move around. And then I can click on it and start to place it. Now, a couple things that you want to keep in mind about leaders. One is that they always break into a horizontal before they drop into a diagonal. All right, so you want to bring it up. It should run horizontally before it turns into this diagonal. All right, the other thing is, people are kind of particular about their graphics, and I find this arrowhead to be just not acceptable. Everyone has their own kind of style for how they like to dimension and what kind of graphics to use. I'm going to go to manage, and I'm going to change mine. Let's see here. So annotations, arrowheads. I want to change my arrowhead. Fill tick. I'm going to fill it. Let's see how that looks. I can't remember if I had to change anything else. Yeah, I like this because you can see it. It's not huge or anything like that, but it makes it really clear what it is that I'm identifying with my arrowhead. Okay, so there's the first one. Now the next one, I'm going to make a copy of this, bring it down here, and I'm going to change this. Roofing felt paper is what we'll call it. Now, remember, this is a form of underlayment, and it is going to go right underneath my shingles. Okay, and this felt paper is old school. As we've studied, there are a lot of products out there for the purposes of this. What you choose to do really depends on the project that you're working on. You probably want to do some research and determine what's the best thing to use. Your builder may make certain requests during the process of construction, say, we'd like to substitute this product for this one. These are all things that happen, but generally speaking, we want to just have some kind of identifier that notes this. All right, now one thing you'll notice that I'm doing as I do these labels is I start from the outermost material and I work my way into the wall. It's much better to do that than to sort of mix things up. I'll put asphalt shingles, third down, and underlayment, whatever the underlayment is above that. It's much easier for someone to understand the assembly if you start from the outer parts and you work your way in. Another thing that you need to keep in mind is these leaders should never cross like that. They need to be free of one another without crossing over each other. So if that means you have to move the text to get things to work out right, then you need to do that. And one thing I didn't add here is the vent spacer. So I'm going to go ahead and and create a graphic to show that. I will go to annotate and detail line, and I will draw a line here like so. This is a medium line. I think that's going to be okay. And then I'm going to offset it. I want to change this to 2. Let's try 2 inches. And I'll go to my original one. Okay, let's move it. I want it to be a little bit clear of that framing. So I will. All right, and now I've got a bunch of lines here that I don't need. I'm going to start erasing some of them. I don't need this one. I don't need this one. I'm going to try it. Instead of remove it, I'm going to generate an offset. There we go. Finally. Okay. Delete. Okay. So just as a reminder, what is Event Spacer? This is one product made by Owens Corning. It basically is sitting in between the rafters and the ceiling joist, and it's basically allowing for the passage of fresh air to pass over the insulations. That's what we're looking at. I don't think any of these details show that any better. There you can see is an installer. Okay, so we're showing a graphic here that's a symbol, basically. So just keep in mind that if my insulation is down here, I need to make sure I'm getting really good airflow through here. This upper attic would not be conditioned. What do I mean by that? It's not heated, it's not cooled. You want the temperature of this attic space to be basically the same temperature as the exterior. Now, if you're planning on using that attic as habitable space, that's different. You would take a different strategy for insulating it. But this basically is just allowing for the insulation to not close up this gap. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to need to move these around. I can already see I don't have enough space to get some of these references the way I'm going to need them to be. I'm going to move this one up. And that's another thing you need to just be willing to do is make adjustments to the placements of things as you begin to fill in the information. And I also, I try to point to the surface of things instead of the middle of them. So, okay, my roofing felt is going to be on top of the subfloor or the sheathing. Okay, my next note, copy. And so now another thing I'm trying to do is maintain alignments here. Just want to kind of keep things neat and orderly. Okay, this one will be 3/4 inch plywood sheathing. Sometimes you'll hear people refer to this as sheeting. I always refer to it as sheathing, but again, it's a little bit of a local thing. And copy. I'm going to call this vent spacer. Okay, and it's a little difficult to find something to point to here. It's really, as you could see, it has like a 3-dimensional profile to it. So there might be like a couple of lines that you could draw up here that would make that clear. But I'm going to leave mine open just to sort of illustrate the passage of the air there. Okay, now we're going to need to get a note in here for the rafters. So here I am going to need to move my notes around a little bit. You may want to get all the notes in first and then move the leaders. Let's see what else we're going to need. We're going to need one for the rafters, one for the ceiling joist, one for the bat insulation. So okay, this one is going to be called, and I believe we did these out of 2x12s, but I'm going to check. Yeah. I'm going to call these 2 little x, in this case, 2x12s at 16 inches, O period C period, which stands for on center. Okay, and then these, I think we did these out. Yeah, I already checked that. These are 2x8. Let's add this 2x12 rafters at 16 inches on center. 2x8 ceiling joists at 16 inches on center. And lastly here, I think this is the last thing. Bad insulation. Move up. Okay, there we go. Copy. And I may move my vent spacer node a little bit down. Make some room. Okay, those are all the notes that I'm going to have for the top of the row. So now I can go ahead and finalize the location of these leaders. And again, try to point to a surface of something to make it clear what it is you're referencing. Rafters. I'm going to point to don't snap as well as I would like, but we're pretty close there. Okay. And at the scale, I won't notice that. Let's see here. This is my bad insulation note here. And we'll point to the insulation in this case. And this is the, let's pull it out so it's got a little bit of space around it for the line. Vent spacer. We'll bring this back. And there we go. All right, that should take care of all of the assembly components for this part, and we'll have a whole bunch of notes for the bottom as well. Okay, I'm going to make more copies of these notes. One directly below the vent spacer. Let's see, we're going to have the gutter, the fascia, the soffit with the vent, the lookouts and my 2x6 top plates. So here we go. We're going to call out the drip edge we just drew. This one is going to be the aluminum gutter. This one is going to be the fascia board. Here. I'm going to say soffit with 2-inch vent. We have our lookouts. And remember those lookouts, we saw them at the rake detail for the gable roof. Similar concept here. Okay, this is a 2x6 double top plate. Okay, we can kind of move these around here. Well, this one's going to just come straight out. Wait to my gutter, drip edge, and pull this back a little bit. Fascia. There. Soffit with 2-inch vent. Can maybe move this up a bit. And what I'm doing that keeps it from moving sometimes. There we go. Okay. Let's point to the vent itself. And let's move these two up a little bit. I look out. And up inside here, we have our double top plate. Okay. And that basically accounts for the notes that we need for the eave. Next thing we'll begin to do is work our way down the wall. One last thing that I want to do before we do that is, let's see about moving these datums in. I wonder if I can bring them all in at the same time, unlocking them. Okay. We will bring them in so that they have an alignment with the text, and looks like I'll have to shift some things around to make this work. Now, I'll tell you, the concern I have is that we're taking up too much width. We're going to have some other details, and we want to make sure that there's enough space for them. So I'm going to make a little room for them. I think it's a little tight. Let's pull them out just a little bit. That way they'll, yeah, it looks like they all kind of move together. All right, I think I would prefer to have a little bit more space in here. These seem really crowded. So I would encourage you all to make the change of moving these things around a little bit. The ones on the bottom seem okay. And it occurs to me that I don't really need this datum right here anyway. So I'm going to turn it off in this detail, and that gives me a little bit more breathing room for all of this. Okay, here we go.